subject of our ASMR today, because we'll again be descending to the bottom of the sea to visit one of the most interesting and oldest and most fearsome predators known to man, the great white shark. So before I get into its encyclopedia, I want to tell a few of the facts I remember from this very interesting program. I'm trying to think of where it aired, but it's called Inside Nature's Giants. And if you have a strong stomach for it, it's a very fascinating show. There's these scientists who go out and do dissections of some of the most giant animals. And there was an episode where they did a great white shark. And what I found so interesting about that episode is that a shark's liver, or at least the great white shark, its liver is about a third of its entire body. So when they cut it open, it was enormous. And the reason for that adaptation is so that they can basically eat anything, and the liver will work as a garbage disposal to sort through it all. Something else I find so interesting about sharks is that their teeth are actually very thin and flexible cartilage, and that actually allows them to be sharper than bone, because they're so thin they can slice right through prey. So those are some of the most interesting things I learned from that program, which I highly recommend. There's the head scientist and host is this woman, a scientist named, I think her name is Joy, and you can tell she just loves what she does. Let's learn a bit more about the great white shark. The great white shark, also known as the white shark, white pointer, or simply great white, is a species of large mackerel shark which can be found in the coastal surface waters of all the major oceans. It is the only known surviving species of its genus Carcharodon. The great white shark is notable for its size, with the largest preserved female specimen measuring 19.1 feet, or 5.83 meters in length, and around 4,400 pounds, or 2,000 kilograms in weight at maturity. However, most are smaller. Males measure 3.4 to 4 meters, or 11 to 13 feet, and females measure 4.6 to 4.9 meters, 15 to 16 feet on average. According to a 2014 study, the lifespan of great white sharks is estimated to be as long as 70 years or more. previous estimates, making it one of the longest-lived cartilaginous fishes currently known. According to the same study, male great white sharks take 26 years to reach sexual maturity, while the females take 33 years to be ready to produce offspring. This again is a theme that I'm seeing from, if you recall, the, of course, much longer-lived Greenland shark, which lives to be up to 500 years old. That species reaches sexual maturity at 150 years old, so it's actually rather interesting how long something that you usually think about in the wild, or especially with our domestic animals like cats and dogs, you think of them as reaching sexual maturity and mating and having offspring. You would think much earlier than, 30 years, much less 150. So that's an interesting theme that I've been noticing with ocean life that's really surprised me. Because with that longer period of time before they can reproduce, you'd think it would have an influence on how well they're thriving as a species. But the great white persists. Great white sharks can swim at speeds of 25 kilometers an hour, which is 16 miles per hour, for short bursts, and to depths of 1,200 meters, or 3,900 feet. The great white shark is arguably the world's largest known extant macropredatory fish, and is one of the primary predators of marine mammals such as pinnipeds and dolphins. The great white shark is also known to prey upon a variety of other animals, including fish, other sharks, and seabirds. It is only one recorded natural predator, the orca. Wouldn't that be a fight to witness? That would be along the lines of when, the trend of Burmese pythons, when people were getting, or ball pythons or Burmese pythons. There was one of those that became a really popular pet in the 2000s, and when they got too big, people released them, and it became a huge problem in the Florida Everglades because they have no natural predators and were an invasive species, but they can grow so large that you can find nature videos of crocodiles and these pythons fighting it out. It's incredible. The species faces numerous ecological challenges, which has resulted in international protection. The International Union for Conservation of Nature lists the great white shark as a vulnerable species, and it is included in Appendix 2 of CITES. It is also protected by several national governments, such as Australia as of 2018, due to their need to travel long distances for seasonal migration and extremely demanding diet. It is not logistically feasible to keep great white sharks in captivity. Because of this, while attempts have been made to do so in the past, there are no known aquariums in the world believed to house a live specimen. The great white shark is depicted in popular culture as a ferocious man-eater, largely as a result of the novel Jaws by Peter Benchley and its subsequent film adaptation by Steven Spielberg. Humans are not a preferred prey, but nevertheless, it is responsible for the largest number of reported and identified fatal, unprovoked shark attacks on humans. However, attacks are rare, typically occurring fewer than 10 times per year globally. The great white is the sole recognized extant species in the genus Carcharodon and is one of 5 extant species belonging to the family Lemnidae. Other members of this family include the mako sharks, porbeagle, and salmon shark. The family belongs to the lemniforms, the order of mackerel sharks. The English name white shark and its Australian variant, white pointer, is thought to have come from the shark's stark white underside. A characteristic feature most noticeable in beach sharks lying upside down with their bellies exposed. Colloquial use favors the name great white shark, with great perhaps stressing the size and prowess of the species, and white shark having historically been used to describe the much smaller oceanic white-tipped shark, as the name lesser white shark is no longer used. While some use white shark to refer to all members of the Lemnidae. The scientific genus name, Carcharodon, literally means jagged tooth, a reference to the large serrations that appear in the shark's teeth. It is a portmanteau of 2 ancient Greek words. The prefix karchar is derived from karkaros, which means jagged or sharp. The suffix odon is a romanization of odon, which translates to tooth. The specific name, Carcharias, is a Latinization of Carcharias, the ancient Greek word for shark. Fossil ancestry. Molecular clock studies published between 1988 and 2002 determined the closest living relative of the great white to be the mako sharks of the genus Isurus, which diverged sometime between 60 and 43 million years ago. Tracing this evolutionary relationship through fossil evidence, however, remains subject to further paleontological study. The original hypothesis of the great white shark's origin held that it is a descendant of a lineage of megatoothed sharks and is closely related to the prehistoric megalodon. I don't think I knew that, but it makes sense. Apparently there is this cliff somewhere that it's where all of the megalodon teeth that are sold comes from, and apparently they are legitimate. But it's I need to look that up to possibly talk about. It's fascinating. But divers can just go there and come out with handfuls of shark teeth, of megalodon teeth. These sharks were considerably larger in size, with megalodon attaining an estimated length of up to 14.2 to 20.3 meters, or 47 to 67 feet. Similarities between the teeth of great white and megatoothed sharks, such as large, triangular shapes, serrated blades, and the presence of dental bands, led the primary evidence of a close evolutionary relationship. As a result, scientists classify the ancient forms under the genus Carcharodon. Although weaknesses in the hypothesis existed, such as uncertainty over exactly which species evolved into the modern great white, and multiple gaps in the fossil record, paleontologists were able to chart the hypothetical lineage back to a 60-million-year-old shark known as Great Alamna as the common ancestor of all sharks within the Lamnidae. However, it is now understood that the great white shark holds closer ties to the mako sharks and is descended from a separate lineage as a chronospecies, unrelated to the megatoothed sharks. This was proven with the discovery of a transitional species that connected the great white to an unserrated shark known as Carcharodon hastalis. This transitional species, which was named Carcharodon hubeli in 2012, demonstrated a mosaic of evolutionary transitions between the great white and C. hastalis, namely the gradual appearance of serrations in a span of between 8 and 5 million years ago. The progression of C. hubeli characterized shifting diets and niches. By 6.5 million years ago, the serrations were developed enough for C. hubeli to handle marine mammals. Although both the great white and C. hastalis were known worldwide, C. hubeli is primarily found in California, Peru, Chile, and surrounding coastal deposits, indicating that the great white had Pacific origins. C. hastalis continued to thrive alongside the great white until its last appearance around 1 million years ago, and is believed to have possibly sired a number of additional species, including Carcharodon subserratus and Carcharodon plicatellus. However, Yoon argued that the tooth fossil remains of C. hastalis and great white shark, quote, have been documented from the same deposits, hence the former cannot be a chronospecific ancestor of the latter. He also criticized that the C. hastalis morphotype has never been tested through phylogenetic analyses, and denoted that as of 2021, the argument that the modern Carcharodon lineage with narrow serrated teeth evolved from C. hastalis with a broad unserrated teeth is uncertain. Distribution and habitat. Great white sharks live in almost all coastal and offshore waters, which have water temperature between 12 and 24 degrees Celsius, which is 54 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, with greater concentrations in the United States, northeastern California, South Africa, Japan, Oceania, Chile, and the Mediterranean, including the Sea of Marmara and Bosphorus. One of the densest known populations is found around Dyer Island, South Africa. Juvenile great white sharks inhabit a more narrow band of temperatures between 14 and 24 degrees Celsius, 57 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, in shallow coastal nurseries. Increased observation of young sharks in areas they were not previously common, such as Monterey Bay on the central California coast, suggest climate change may be reducing the range of juvenile great white sharks and shifting it toward the poles. If I'm not mistaken, the Monterey Bay Aquarium made several attempts to house a great white shark in captivity, but as of yet there haven't been any successes. But I'm curious if this article will write about that. 2018 study indicated that white sharks prefer to congregate deep in anticyclonic eddies in the North Atlantic Ocean. The shark study tended to favor the warm water eddies, spending the daytime hours at depths of 450 meters, 1,480 feet, and coming to the surface at night. Anatomy and appearance. The great white shark has a robust, large, conical snout. The upper and lower lobes on the tail fin are approximately the same size, which is similar to some mackerel sharks. A great white displays counter shading by having a white underside and a gray dorsal area, sometimes in a brown or blue shade, that gives an overall mottled appearance. The coloration makes it difficult for prey to spot the shark because it breaks up the shark's outline when seen from the side. From above, the darker shade blends with the sea, and from below it exposes a minimal silhouette against the sunlight. Leucism is extremely rare in this species, but has been documented at least 3 times. In a pup that washed ashore in Australia and died, in another pup in South Africa, and a third 6-meter adult male in Indonesia. Let's look up what leucism is. It's spelled Leucism. Leucism is a wide variety of conditions that result in partial loss of pigmentation in an animal, causing white, pale, or patchy coloration of the skin, hair, feathers, scales, or cuticles, but not the eyes. Interesting. Great white sharks, like many other sharks, have rows of serrated teeth behind the main ones, ready to replace any that break off. If you've ever seen a shark jaw in real life, I have one in my bedroom. That's the coolest thing about it, is that the primary row of teeth will be up front or invisible from the front, but when you look at the back of the jaw, there's rows and rows of more shark teeth. It's amazing. When the shark bites, it shakes its head side to side, helping the teeth saw off large chunks of flesh. Great white sharks, like other mackerel sharks, have larger eyes than other shark species in proportion to their body size. The iris of the eye is a deep blue instead of black. In great white sharks, sexual dimorphism is present, and females are generally larger than males, while females measure 4.6 to 4.9 meters, 15 to 16 feet. Male great whites on average measure 3.4 to 4 meters, 11 to 13 feet in length. Adults of this species weigh 522 to 771 kilograms, which is 1,151 to 1,700 pounds on average. However, mature females can have an average mass of 680 to 1,110 kilograms, which is 1,500 to 2,450 pounds. The largest females have been verified up to 6.1 meters, or 20 feet in length, and an estimated 1,905 kilograms, or 4,200 pounds in weight. Perhaps up to 5,000 pounds. The maximum size is subject to debate because some reports are rough estimations or speculations performed under questionable circumstances. Among living cartilaginous fish, only the whale shark, These three species are generally quite docile in disposition and given to passively filter feeding on very small organisms. This makes the great white shark the largest extant macropredatory fish. Great white sharks measure approximately 1.2 meters or 3.9 feet when born and grow about 25 centimeters or 9.8 inches every year. I wonder if that means that they don't stop growing. So I wonder if you can tell age by how big they are. A complete female great white shark specimen in the Museum of Zoology in Lausanne and claimed by De Madalena et al. In 2003 as the largest preserved specimen, measured 5.83 meters, 19.1 feet, in total body length, with a caudal fin in its depressed position, and is estimated to have weighed 2,000 kilograms, or 4,410 pounds. According to J.E. Randall, the largest white shark reliably measured was 5.94 meters, or 19.5 feet. A specimen reported from Ledge Point, Western Australia, in 1987, but it is unclear whether that length was measured with the caudal fin in its depressed or natural position. Another great white specimen of similar size was a female caught in August 1988 in the Gulf of St. Lawrence off Prince Edward Island by David McKendrick of Alberton, Prince Edward Island. This female great white was 6.1 meters, 20 feet long, as verified by the Canadian Shark Research Centre. Well, why didn't they just start there? A report of a specimen reportedly caught measuring 6.4 meters, or 21 feet in length, and with a body mass estimated at between 7,700 and 7,328 pounds, caught in 1945 off the coast of Cuba, was at time considered reliable by some experts. However, later studies revealed that this particular specimen to be around 4.9 meters, or 16 feet in length, i.e. a specimen within the typical maximum size range. A number of very large, unconfirmed great white shark specimens have been recorded. For decades, many ichthyological works, as well as the Guinness Book of World Records, listed two great white sharks as the largest individuals. In the 1870s, a 36-foot great white captured in southern Australian waters near Port Fairy, and a 37-foot shark trapped in a herring ware in New Brunswick, Canada in the 1930s. However, these measurements were not obtained in a rigorous, scientifically valid manner, and researchers have questioned the reliability of these measurements for a long time, noting they were much larger than any other accurately reported sighting. Adaptations. Great white sharks, like all other sharks, have an extra sense given by the ampullae of Lorenzini, which enables them to detect the electromagnetic field emitted by the movement of living animals. They really are God's favorite as far as all of the adaptations that have allowed them to survive for millions of years. whites and crocodiles for sure. Great whites are so sensitive, they can detect variations of half a billionth of a fold. At close range, this allows the shark to locate even immobile animals by detecting their heartbeat. Wow. Most fish have a less developed but similar sense using their body's lateral line. That's fascinating. To more successfully hunt fast and agile prey such as sea lions, the great white has adapted to maintain a body temperature warmer than the surrounding water. One of these adaptations is a rete mirabile, Latin for wonderful net. This close web-like structure of veins and arteries, located along each lateral side of the shark, conserves heat by warming the cooler arterial blood with the venous blood that has been warmed by the working muscles. This keeps certain parts of the body, particularly the stomach, at temperatures up to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, above that of the surrounding water, while the heart and gills remain at sea temperature. When conserving energy, the core body temperature can drop to match the surroundings. A great white shark's success in raising its core temperature is an example of gigantothermy. Therefore, the great white shark can be considered an endothermic, poikilotherm, or mesotherm because of its body temperature is not constant but is internally regulated. Great whites also rely on the fat and oils stored within their livers for long-distance migrations across nutrient-poor areas of the oceans. Studies by Stanford University and the Monterey Bay Aquarium, published on July 17, 2013, revealed that in addition to controlling the shark's buoyancy, the liver of great whites is essential in migration patterns. Sharks that sink faster during drift drives were revealed to use up their internal stores of energy quicker than those which sink in a dive at more leisurely rates. Toxicity from heavy metals seems to have little negative effects on great white sharks. Blood samples taken from 43 individuals of varying size, age, and sex off the southern African coast, led by biologists from the University of Miami in 2012, indicates that despite high levels of mercury, lead, and arsenic, there was no sign of raised white blood cell count and granulate to lymphocyte ratios, indicating the sharks had healthy immune systems. This discovery suggests a previously known physiological defense against heavy metal poisoning. Great whites are known to have a propensity for self-healing and avoiding age-related ailments. There's actually quite a few ocean mammals that have this. Their longevity and their ability to heal is very fascinating. Something about being in water where all life originated, Terrifying as the ocean can be, but probably not so terrifying if you're a great white shark, as they seem to be thriving. The shark's behavior and social structure are complex. In South Africa, white sharks have a dominance hierarchy where an individual's rank is primarily established by their size, and to a lesser extent, their sex and squatters' rights. Larger sharks dominate smaller sharks, females dominate males, and established residents dominate newcomers. When hunting, great whites tend to separate and resolve conflicts with rituals and displays. White sharks rarely resort to combat, although some individuals have been found with bite marks that match those of other white sharks. This suggests that when a great white approaches approaches too closely to another, they react with a warning bite. Another possibility is that white sharks bite to show their dominance. Data acquired from animal-borne telemetry receivers and published in 2022 via the Journal of Royal Society Publishing suggests that individual great whites may associate so that they can inadvertently share information on the whereabouts of prey or the location of the remains of animals that can be scavenged. As biologging can help to reveal social habits, it allows a better understanding to be made in future studies regarding the full extent of the social interactions in large marine mammals, including the great white shark. The great white shark is one of only a few sharks known to regularly lift its head above the sea surface to gaze at other objects such as prey. This is known as spy hopping. This behavior has also been seen in at least one group of black-tip reef sharks, but this might be learned from interaction with humans. It is theorized that the shark may also be able to smell better this way because smell travels through air faster than through water. White sharks are generally very curious animals, display intelligence, and may also turn to socializing if the situation demands it. At Seal Island, white sharks have been observed arriving and departing in stable clans of 2 to 6 individuals on a yearly basis. Whether clan members are related is unknown, but they get along peacefully enough. In fact, the social structure of a clan is probably most aptly compared to that of a wolf pack, in that each member has a clearly established rank, and each clan has an alpha leader. When members of different clans meet, they establish social rank nonviolently through a variety of interactions. In 2022, research in South Africa suggested that the great white shark has the ability to change colors to camouflage itself depending on the hormones it gives off. Different hormones would change the color of the skin from white to gray. Skin dosed with adrenaline would turn lighter, with melanocyte-stimulating hormone causing melanocyte cells to dissipate, thus making the shark's skin a darker color. Although hormone-mediated color change is not fully validated due to the limited number of test subjects. The camo shark hypothesis is supported by the fact that zebra sharks can change their color as they age, and rainbow sharks can lose color due to stress and aging. Great white sharks are generalist carnivores, preying upon fish, cetaceans, pinnipeds, squid, sea turtles, sea otters, and seabirds. Great whites have also been known to eat objects that they are unable to digest. Juvenile white sharks predominantly prey on fish, including other elasmobranchs, as their jaws are not strong enough to withstand the forces required to attack larger prey such as pinnipeds and cetaceans until they reach a length of 10 feet or more, at which point their jaw cartilage mineralizes enough to withstand the impact of biting into larger prey species. Upon approaching a length of nearly 13 feet, great white sharks begin to target predominantly marine mammals for food, though individual sharks seem to specialize in different types of prey, depending on their preferences. I love that all animals have their preferences of food. Just like our cats won't always like the same treats, or our dogs won't like the same foods. Sharks have personalities too. They seem to be highly opportunistic. These sharks prefer prey with a high content of energy-rich fat. Shark expert Peter Glimley used a rod and reel rig and trolled carcasses of a seal, a pig, and a sheep from his boat in the south of Netherlands. The sharks attacked all 3 baits but rejected the sheep carcass. Seal Island, False Bay in South Africa, the sharks ambush brown fur seals from below at high speeds, hitting the seal mid-body. They achieve high speeds that allow them to completely breach the surface of the water. The peak burst speed is estimated to be above 40 kilometers an hour or 25 miles per hour. They have also been observed chasing prey after a missed attack. Prey is usually attacked at the surface. Shark attacks occur most often in the morning, within 2 hours of sunrise, when visibility is poor. Their success rate is 55% in the first 2 hours, falling to 40% in late morning, after which hunting stops. Good to know. Off California, sharks use different predation techniques depending on the prey species. They immobilize northern elephant seals with a large bite to the hindquarters and wait for the seal to bleed to death. This technique is especially used on adult male elephant seals, which are typically larger than the shark, I was about to say, ranging between 3,300 and 4,400 pounds, and are potentially dangerous adversaries. Yeah, elephant seals is one that we'll have to add to the docket because they are fascinating. They're one of those animals that sometimes you can see a picture of them and think that they're cute. But in practice, they're absolutely vicious. A better example is the leopard seal. They can look very innocuous and cute, but they're one of the most fearsome predators of the ocean. I think, along with the great white, probably the only species that can take on an orca. Maybe some of the larger whales, although less motivated, obviously, since they're less predatory. This technique, let me see, primarily used on male elephant seals. However, juvenile elephant seals are the most frequently eaten at elephant seal colonies. Prey is normally attacked subsurface. Harbor seals are taken from the surface and dragged down until they stop struggling. They are then eaten near the bottom. California sea lions are ambushed from below and struck mid-body before being dragged and eaten. In the Northwest Atlantic, mature great whites are known to feed on both harbor and gray seals. Unlike adults, juvenile white sharks in the area feed on smaller fish species until they are large enough to prey on marine mammals, such as seals. White sharks also attack dolphins and porpoises from above, behind, or below to avoid being detected by their echolocation. Groups of dolphins have occasionally been observed defending themselves from sharks with mobbing behavior. White shark predation on other species of small cetacean has also been observed. In addition, white sharks attack and prey upon beaked whales. When hunting sea turtles, they appear to simply bite through the carapace around a flipper, immobilizing the turtle. The heaviest species of bony fish, the oceanic sunfish, has been found in great white shark stomachs. I think that would be a very easy meal. Ocean sunfish are, first of all, gigantic, but they seem to kind of, from what I've observed and read, float sort of aimlessly on the surface. Whale carcasses comprise an important part of the diet of white sharks. However, this has rarely been observed due to whales dying in remote areas. It has been estimated that 66 pounds of whale blubber could feed a 15-foot great white shark for 1.5 months. Detailed observations were made of 4 whale carcasses in False Bay between 2000 and 2010. Sharks were drawn to the carcass by chemical and odor detection spread by strong winds. After initially feeding on the whale caudal peduncle and fluke, the sharks would investigate the carcass by slowly swimming around it and mouthing several parts before selecting a blubber-rich area. During feeding bouts of 15 to 20 seconds, the sharks removed flesh with lateral head shakes without the protective ocular rotation they employ when attacking live prey. Unusually for the area, large numbers of sharks over 5 meters long were observed, suggesting that the largest sharks changed their behavior to search for whales as they lose the maneuverability required to hunt seals. The investigating team concluded that the importance of whale carcasses, particularly for the largest white sharks, has been underestimated. Stomach contents of great whites also indicate that whale sharks, both juvenile and adult, may also be included on the animal's menu, though whether this is active hunting or scavenging is not yet known. Great white sharks were previously thought to reach sexual maturity at around 15 years of age, but are now believed to take far longer. Male great white sharks reach sexual maturity at age 26, while females take 33 years to reach sexual maturity. Maximum lifespan was originally believed to be more than 30 years, but a study by the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution placed it at upwards of 70 years. Examinations of vertebral growth ring count gave maximum male age of 73 years and a maximum female age of 40 years for the specimen studied. The shark's late sexual maturity, low reproductive rate, long gestation period of 11 months, and slow growth make it vulnerable to pressures such as overfishing and environmental change. Little is known about the great white shark's mating habits, and mating behavior had not yet been observed in this species until 1997, and properly documented in 2020. It was assumed previously to be possible that whale carcasses are an important location for sexually mature sharks to meet for mating. Romantic. According to the testimony of fisherman Dick Ledgerwood, who observed 2 great white sharks mating in the area near Port Chalmers and Otago Harbor in New Zealand, it is theorized that great white sharks mate in shallow water away from feeding areas and continually roll belly to belly during copulation. Birth has never been observed, but pregnant females have been examined. Great white sharks are ovoviviparous, which means eggs develop and hatch in the uterus and continue to develop until birth. The great white has an 11-month gestation period. The shark's pup's powerful jaws begin to develop in the first month. The unborn sharks participate in oophagy, in which they feed on ova produced by the mother. Delivery is in spring and summer. The largest number of pups recorded for this species is 14 pups from a single mother, measuring 15 feet. On July 9th, 2023, the first footage of what was likely a newborn great white shark was filmed via aerial drone off of Southern California, off Carpinteria, after a large adult shark was seen diving to the bottom, roughly 1,000 feet from the shoreline, after which the smaller shark rose to the surface. Cute. The young shark, estimated up to 4.9 feet long or 1.5 meters, was pale in color, possibly due to what may be an embryonic covering, possibly intrauterine milk, was seen sloughing off the skin of the young shark. Adult study published in October 2024 lends further support to the theory that the Carpentaria shark was a newborn. The description and examination of neonate board beagles with a similar body covering to the young great white suggests that the body covering is not intrauterine milk, which ceases in production mid-gestation, but is instead embryonic epilithium that covers the shark's tentacles and rubs off shortly after birth. Breaching behavior. A breach is the result of a high-speed approach to the surface, with the resulting momentum taking the shark partially or completely clear of the water. This is a hunting technique employed by great white sharks, whilst hunting seals. Orcas do this as well. This technique is often used on Cape fur seals at Seal Island in False Bay, South Africa. Because the behavior is unpredictable, it is very hard to document. Between April and September, scientists may observe around 600 breaches. The seals swim on the surface, and the great white sharks launch their predatory attack from the deeper water below. They can reach speeds of up to 25 miles per hour and can launch it, and at times launch themselves more than 10 feet into the air, or 3 meters. Wow, 10 feet. That's a terrifying image. Just under half of observed breach attacks are successful. In 2011, a 3-meter-long shark jumped onto a 7-person research vessel off Seal Island in Mossel Bay. The crew were undertaking a population study using sardines as bait, and the incident was judged not to be an attack on the boat, but an accident. Natural threats, interspecific competition and predation by orcas. Interspecific competition between the great white shark and the orca is probable in regions where dietary preferences of both species may overlap. An incident was documented on October 4th, 1997, in the Farallon Islands off California in the United States. An estimated 15 to 17 foot female orca immobilized an estimated 10 to 13 foot great white shark. The orca held the shark upside down to induce tonic immobility and kept the shark still for 15 minutes, causing it to suffocate. You do not want to mess with orcas. They do what they have to do, and then some. The orca then proceeded to eat the dead shark's liver. I mean, orcas are dolphins, making them pretty much the Hannibal Lecters of the ocean. Luckily, they seem to be on the side against capitalism, so go for it as far as, yachts but wow. It is believed that the scent of the slain shark's carcass caused all the great whites in the region to flee, forfeiting an opportunity for a great seasonal feed. Another similar attack apparently occurred there in 2000, but its outcome is not clear. After both attacks, the local population of about 100 great whites vanished. Following the 2000 incident, a great white with a satellite tag was found to have immediately submerged to a depth of 1,600 feet and swam to Hawaii. So that orca was like, I'm gonna catch one of you and show you how it's done, and you're gonna swim all the way to Hawaii and get out of here. In 2015, a pod of orcas was recorded to have killed a great white shark off South Australia. In 2017, 3 great whites were found washed ashore near Gansby, South Africa, with their body cavities torn open and the livers removed by what is likely to have been orcas. Wow. So great white shark livers is an orca delicacy. It is unclear whether this is an example of competitive exclusion or ecology of fear. Okay, well, I have to click the ecology of fear link. The ecology of fear is a conceptual framework describing the psychological impact that predator-induced stress experienced by animals has on populations and ecosystems. Within ecology, the impact of predators has been traditionally viewed as limited to the animals that they directly kill, while the ecology of fear advances evidence that predators may have a far more substantial impact on the individuals that they predate, reducing fecundity, survival, and population sizes. Yeah, that feels pretty straightforward. Occasionally, however, some great whites have been seen to swim near orcas without fear. The great white shark is the definitive host of two species of tapeworms from the genus Glistobothrium, these being Glistobothrium carcharodoni and Glistobothrium demerdium, both of which infect the shark's spiral intestine. The former is believed to be transmitted to great whites through the consumption of infected cetacean prey, namely the spinner dolphin, Risso's dolphin, and the common bottlenose dolphin, all of which serve as intermediary or parentenic hosts of the tapeworm. The latter species of tapeworm's transmission vector is currently unknown, but it is unlikely to share the same intermediary hosts as Glistobothrium carcharodoni. The intensity of Glistobothrium carcharodoni infestations in affected great whites is extremely high. In one case, up to 2,533 specimens were recovered from the spiral valve of a single great white. There are two recorded instances of the ectoparasitic cookie-cutter shark targeting subadult great whites off the coast of Guadalupe Island. However, the relative dearth of predation records indicates that great whites are not a common food source for cookie-cutter sharks, and that cetaceans and pinnipeds, especially the Guadalupe fur seal, are preferred over great whites, in part due to the higher caloric content of their blubber, and in part due to the higher risk of retaliation from victimized great whites. Cookie-cutter sharks make me think about, if you like playing video games, there's this really fun one that has an ocean setting, which I always look for. It's called Dave the Diver. I strongly recommend. It's so fun. Relationship with humans. Of all shark species, the great white shark is responsible for by far the largest number of recorded shark bite incidents on humans, with 351 documented unprovoked bite incidents on humans as of 2024. More than any documented bite incident, Peter Benchley's best-selling novel Jaws and the subsequent 1975 film adaptation, directed by Steven Spielberg, provided the great white shark with the image of being a man-eater in the public mind. While great white sharks have killed humans in at least 74 documented unprovoked bite incidents, they typically do not target them. For example, in the Mediterranean Sea, there have been 31 confirmed bite incidents against humans in the last 2 centuries, most of which were non-fatal. Many of the incidents seem to be test bites. Great white sharks also test bite buoys, flotsam, and other unfamiliar objects, and they might grab a human or a surfboard to identify what it is. Eyes like a doll's eyes. Many bite incidents occur in waters with low visibility or other situations which impair the shark's senses. This species appears to not like the taste of humans, or at least finds the taste unfamiliar. Further research shows that they can decide whether or not the object is worth predating upon. Humans, for the most part, are too bony for their liking. They much prefer seals, which are fat and rich in protein. Studies published in 2021 by Ryan et al. In the Journal of the Royal Society Interface suggest that mistaken identity is in fact a case for many shark bite incidents perpetrated by great white sharks. Using cameras and footage of seals in aquariums as models, and mounted cameras moving at the same speed and angle as a cruising great white shark looking up at the surface from below, the experiment suggests that the sharks are likely colorblind and cannot see in fine enough detail to determine whether the silhouette above them is a pinniped or a swimming human, potentially vindicating the hypothesis. Humans are not appropriate prey because the shark's digestion is too slow to cope with the human's high ratio of bone to muscle and fat. Accordingly, in most recorded shark bite incidents, great whites broke off contact after the first bite. Fatalities are usually caused by blood loss from the initial bite rather from critical organ loss or from whole consumption. As of 2024, of the 351 recorded unprovoked attacks, 59 were fatal. However, some researchers have hypothesized that the reason the proportion of fatalities is low is not that sharks do not like human flesh, but because humans are often able to escape after the first bite. In the 1980s, John McCosker, chair of aquatic biology at the California Academy of Sciences, noted that divers who dived solo and were bitten by great whites were generally at least partially consumed, while divers who followed the buddy system were generally rescued by their companion. McCosker and Timothy C. Trigas, an author and professor at the University of Hawaii, suggest that a standard pattern for great whites is to make an initial devastating attack and then wait for the prey to weaken before consuming the wounded animal. Humans' ability to move out of reach with the help of others, thus foiling the attack, is unusual for a great white's prey. I would think that dolphins maybe have some of that advantage as well. I'd be curious to hear that. Attacks on boats. Great white sharks infrequently bite and sometimes even sink boats. Only 5 of the 108 authenticated unprovoked shark bite incidents reported from the Pacific coast during the 20th century involved kayakers. In a few cases, they have bitten boats up to 33 feet in length. They have bumped or knocked people overboard, usually biting the boat from astern. In one case in 1936, a large shark leapt completely into the South African fishing boat Lucky Jim, knocking a crewman into the sea. Trigas and McCosker's underwater observations suggest that sharks are attracted to boats by the electrical fields they generate, which are picked up on by the ampullae of Lorenzini, and confuse the shark about whether or not wounded prey might be nearby. In captivity, it looks like there's a whole article on the Monterey Bay Aquarium and great white sharks that I was referencing, yeah. Prior to August 1981, no great white shark in captivity lived longer than 11 days. Isn't that wild for such a formidable predator to perish so quickly? I wonder if it has to do with something kind of extra sensory, like the way that dolphins and orcas are driven mad not only by the isolation of captivity, but also by, in the case of dolphins and orcas, not being able to use echolocation because of how it bounces off of glass and walls. I wonder if there's something similar with the sharks' electromagnetism or whatever it was, or ability to sense electricity. But this is just speculation. Now back to the article. Prior to August 1981, no great white shark in captivity lived longer than 11 days. In August 1981, a great white survived for 16 days at SeaWorld San Diego before being released. The The idea of containing a live great white at SeaWorld Orlando was used in the 1983 film Jaws 3D. Monterey Bay Aquarium first attempted to display a great white in 1984, but the shark died after 11 days because it did not eat. In July 2003, Monterey researchers captured a small female and kept it in a large netted pen near Malibu for 5 days. They had the rare success of getting the shark to feed in captivity before its release. Not until September 2004 was the aquarium able to place a great white on long-term exhibit. A young female, which was caught off the coast of Ventura, was kept in the aquarium's 3.8 million liter Outer Bay exhibit for 198 days before she was released in March 2005. She was dragged for 30 days after release. On the evening of August 31st, 2006, the aquarium introduced a juvenile male caught outside Santa Monica Bay. His first meal as a captive was a large salmon steak on September 8th, 2006, and as of that date, he was estimated to be 68 inches in length and to weigh approximately 104 pounds. He was released in January 2007 after 137 days of captivity. Monterey Bay Aquarium housed a third great white, a juvenile male, for 162 days between August 27, 2007 and February 5, 2008. A juvenile female came to the Outer Bay exhibit in August 2008. While she did swim well, the shark fed only once during her stay and was tagged and released. The Monterey Bay Aquarium does not exhibit any more great whites, as the main purpose of containing them was scientific. As data from captive great whites were no longer needed, the Institute has instead shifted its focus to study wild sharks. Perhaps the most famous captive was an 8-foot female named Sandy, which in August 1980 became the only great white to be housed at the California Academy of Sciences Steinhardt Aquarium in San Francisco, California. She was released because she would not eat and constantly bumped against the walls. Due to the vast amounts of resources required and the subsequent cost to keep a great white shark alive in captivity, their dietary preferences, size, migratory nature, and the stress of capture and containment, permanent exhibition of a great white shark is likely to be unfeasible. Cage diving is most common at sites where great whites are frequent, including the coast of South Africa, the Neptune Islands in South Australia, and Guadalupe Island in Baja California. At present, hang baits are illegal off Isla Guadalupe, and reputable dive operators do not use them. Operators in South Africa and Australia continue to use hang baits and pinniped decoys. In South Australia, playing rock music recordings underwater, including the AC/DC album Back in Black, has been used experimentally to attract sharks. Companies object to being blamed for shark bite incidents, pointing out that lightning tends to strike humans more often than sharks bite humans. Their position is that further research needs to be done before banning practices such as chumming, which may alter natural behavior. One compromise is to only use chum in areas where whites actively patrol anyway, well away from human leisure areas. Also, responsible dive operators do not feed sharks. Only sharks that are willing to scavenge follow the chum trail, and if they find no food at the end, then the shark soon swims off and does not associate chum with a meal. It has been suggested that government licensing strategies may help enforce this responsible tourism. conservation status. It is unclear how much of the concurrent increase in fishing for great white sharks has caused the decline of great white shark populations from the 1970s to present. No accurate global population numbers are available, but the great white shark is now considered vulnerable worldwide and critically endangered in Europe and the Mediterranean. Sharks taken during the long interval between birth and sexual maturity never reproduce, making population recovery and growth difficult. The International Union for Conservation of Nature notes that very little is known about the actual status of the great white shark, but as it appears uncommon compared to other widely distributed species, it is considered vulnerable. As of March 2010, it has also been included in Annex 1 of the CMS Migratory Sharks, which strives for increased international understanding and coordination for the protection of certain migratory sharks. A February 2010 study by Barbara Block of Stanford University estimated the world population of great white sharks to be lower than 3,500 individuals, making the species more vulnerable to extinction than the tiger. I was about to say whose population is in the same range, and that's right, there are only about 2,000 tigers if I'm not mistaken. It was a shocking number when I first learned that, though. They are on the rise at the moment. But wow, I didn't know that great whites were charting nearly that low. I hope they're just elusive. According to another study from 2014, there are about 2,000 great white sharks near the California coast, which is 10 times higher than the previous estimate of 219 by Barbara Block. So there could be hope yet. Fishermen may target sharks for their jaws, teeth, and fins, and as game fish in general. The great white shark, however, is rarely an object of commercial fishing, although its flesh is considered valuable. If casually captured, it is misleadingly sold as smoothhound shark. The great white shark was declared vulnerable by the Australian government in 1999 because of significant population decline and is currently protected under the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. The causes of decline prior to protection included mortality from sport fishing harvests, as well as being caught in beach protection netting. The national conservation status of the great white shark is reflected by all Australian states under the respective laws, granting the species full protection throughout Australia regardless of jurisdiction. Many states had prohibited the killing or possession of great white sharks prior to national legislation coming into effect. The great white shark is further listed as threatened in Victoria under the Flora and Fauna Guarantee Act, and is rare or likely to become extinct under the Schedule 5 of the Wildlife Conservation Act in Western Australia. In 2002, the Australian government created the White Shark Recovery Plan, implementing government-mandated conservation research and monitoring for conservation in addition to federal protection and stronger regulation of shark-related trade and tourism activities. An updated recovery plan was published in 2013 to review progress, research findings, and to implement further conservation actions. A study in 2012 revealed that Australia's white shark population was separated by Bass Strait into genetically distinct eastern and western populations, indicating a need for the development of regional conservation strategies. Presently, human-caused shark mortality is continuing, primarily from accidental and illegal catching and commercial and recreational fishing, as well as from being caught in beach protection netting, and the populations of great white shark in Australia are yet to recover. In spite of official protections in Australia, great whites continue to be killed in state shark control programs within Australia. Partly because of these programs, shark numbers in eastern Australia have decreased. The Australasian population of great whites is believed to be in excess of 8,000 to 10,000 individuals, according to genetic research studies done by CISRO, with an adult population estimated to be around 2,200 individuals in both eastern and western Western Australia. The annual survival rate for juveniles in these two separate populations was estimated in the same study to be close to 73%, while adult sharks had a 93% annual survival rate. Whether or not mortality rates in great white sharks have declined or the population has increased as a result of the protection of the species in Australian waters is as yet unknown due to the slow growth rate of the species. In the United States, California, in addition to existing federal regulations, great white sharks have been protected under California state law since January 1994. Under this law, catching, hunting, pursuit, capturing, and/or killing of great whites in California waters is strictly prohibited up to 3 miles offshore, though exceptions exist for great whites caught for scientific research or unintentionally caught as bycatch. In both cases, a special permit is required in order to legally take them. In 2013, great white sharks were added to California's Endangered Species Act. From data collected, the population of great whites in the North Pacific was estimated to be fewer than 340 individuals. Research also reveals these sharks are genetically distinct from other members of their species elsewhere in Africa, Australia, and the east coast of North America, having been isolated from other populations. A 2014 study estimated the population of great white sharks along the California coastline to be approximately 2,400. In September 2019, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Assembly Bill 2109 into law, banning the use of shark bait, shark lures, and chumming to attract great whites in California waters, and prohibiting their usage within 1 nautical mile of any shoreline, pier, or jetty when a great white is visible or known to be present in the area. Massachusetts. In June 2015, Massachusetts banned catching, cage diving, feeding, towing, decoys, or baiting and chumming for its significant and highly predictable migratory great white population without an appropriate research permit. However, these restrictions apply to only activities within state waters, which extend 3 miles from shore. Therefore, there are over a dozen tour operators offering cage diving, and some do bait and/or chum. That concludes today's reading about the great white shark. I've been thinking about possibly branching out into looking up ahead of time, as I did with the blue whale reading, some other articles and facts that perhaps might be a little less dry than some areas of the Wikipedias, but first of all, I do find the Wikipedia really fascinating, and then also it's kind of weighing how much interest you want there to be versus kind of having a little bit of a boring, monotonous, soothing, relaxing ASMR experience. So I'm curious to hear any thoughts that anyone might have on that. But